Eggplant Parmesan, and it starts with the tomatoes. 2 cans of whole tomatoes, brown sugar, and of course, some olive oil, some balsamic for that acidic quality, some salt and pepper. We're not gonna cook this in a pot. Oh no. We're not gonna cook it on the stovetop. Oh no. We're gonna cook it on a silicone-lined baking sheet. And these are gonna really concentrate in that oven. Just get caramelized and sweet. Into the oven they go, 375. All right, those will take 20 to 30 minutes. Just make sure there's a nice caramelization to them. 1 eggplant, that's all this takes. We're gonna lop the ends off this and peel it. We're gonna cut this into 1/2-inch rounds, perfect medallions. You want it to be kind of steaky, meaty. And to do that, you treat it right, you fry it right, and you bite it right. And the beauty of this next move, it's not just seasoning it, right? You take that kosher salt, you sprinkle each side beautifully, but it's gonna firm up that eggplant, make it meatier, and also soak out some of that bitterness that sometimes comes with eggplant. Put it over here. Let it sit about 15 minutes. All right, I can smell my tomatoes in the air. It smells sweet and tomatoey. We did it all in the oven, perfectly caramelized. It almost looks like candy. Let that cool down for a little bit. Okay, eggplant. You can see all those beads of moisture. It's firmed up. So just dab these, get all that moisture out. The only thing we need to add right now, a little fresh cracked pepper. Fantastic. So next thing we want to do is a standard breading station, right? If you're making fish, if you're making chicken, even if you're making eggplant, the same procedure applies. Soak up some of that excess moisture by dipping it into the flour. Dip it in the egg. There we go. And right into our panko and Parmesan mixture. It would not be eggplant Parmesan without a little Parmesan in there. Cooking's not just about eating and making. It can be about working out. So when you get the urge, don't be afraid to hammer curl it up, hammer curl it down right into the egg wash. I want to be totally in shape for you guys. We're ready to go. Let's get to frying. I want to hear some sizzling. Gently lay it in there. You can use the amount of bubbling you hear as a gauge. If it's really rapidly bubbling and making a ton of noise, you know immediately your oil is too hot. So make sure your oil is low enough, it's shimmering but not smoking, and that it's singing just like this. Goes for about 3 to 4 minutes aside until it's golden. All right, we want it golden. We want to do it slow so it kind of cooks through, crisps up, and makes the eggplant nice and soft. Do it this way, it's going to be perfect every time. Listen to it. Use your ears. Use your eyes. Use your heart. They're gonna be perfectly golden brown. Look at that, nice. You want it dark, but not too dark, but you want some color on there, definitely. All right, we're gonna let that go for about 3 minutes. I have some brioche buns. I buttered and grilled. You get that golden interior right there. Just rough chopping these papadou peppers. You can find these at any grocery store or Olive Bar. These are really sweet, very lightly spicy. I love these things, papadous. Sounds fun to say. We got burrata cheese right here. It's beautiful cheese. Outside is a traditional mozzarella. Inside is cream mixed with stracciatella, which is essentially string cheese. So you're getting 3 kinds of textures. Put it on the bottom bun. And of course, our nice warm, do 2. You want people to know they're eating eggplant when they bite into it. So don't be afraid to layer it on, all right? Papadou peppers. And of course, look at these. Look how these turned out. Our oven roasted whole tomatoes. Oh, it's like candy. Whole leaf basil. All right, close that up. Oh, you look at that? That is beautiful. See, don't be afraid to get down low. Get into the face of the sandwich, face to face. You hear that?
For a main, I'm serving up a hearty chickpea squash pot pie that's got everything that's good about autumn. Squash, apples, coziness, a blanket of phyllo dough, all served up in a cast iron skillet. My skillet is hot already. I'll drizzle in a tablespoon of olive oil and plop in a couple of tablespoons of butter. I'll pile in my mirepoix. I have a chopped yellow onion and a few stalks of celery that are chopped, and some carrots that I've sliced into thicker coins. I'll sprinkle in a couple of good pinches of salt to help draw out the moisture of the vegetables, which will allow them to soften. I'll stir this around and give them a good 7 to 10 minutes so that they can sweat out. I'll add some earthy thyme. Got 4 cloves of chopped garlic, 2 teaspoons of za'atar. It's bright, it's nice. A teaspoon of paprika, and a pinch of cayenne. Smelling that thyme already. I'll stir this in and allow the spices to toast, allow the garlic to cook, and once it's smelling really fragrant, that's your sign to go on to the next step. Dry red wine is gonna help me deglaze, and it will contribute delicious depth. Before I add any other ingredients, I want to allow the red wine to reduce, just leaving behind the flavor. I do want to cook off that alcohol. This red wine is reduced by half. I'll pour in the rest of the braising liquid. I have 1 15-ounce can of crushed tomatoes and 2 cups of low-sodium vegetable stock. I'll plop in some cubed, colorful butternut squash. And now to cut some of the sweetness, I'll chop and add a sourish apple. Next, a 1/4 cup of chopped fresh parsley. Let me stir these in and allow them to start to get soft. I'll also toss in a bay leaf to infuse more herby flavor. It smells good. Now that I've put the whole garden into this pot, I'm ready for some protein. 2 cans of rinsed chickpeas will soak up this stew and get creamy, kind of melt down. I am going to allow this big honkin' skillet to simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. I want the flavors to meld and for the squash to start to soften. I'll finish this off with a splash of vinegar for acidity, honey to balance, salt, and then grab my crispy, irresistible topping. I'm using phyllo dough. One very important thing to keep in mind when you're working with phyllo is that you want to prevent it from drying out. So I've got a wet paper towel here. I'm gonna work with one at a time. I'll brush with a thin layer of butter to help it get crispy and delicious. I'll sprinkle it with za'atar. To transfer this on top of my pie, I'll slip my hands under it and bunch it up so that it sort of looks like a rustic rose. It's like a flower. Right here on top. And I like to give it some good height so that you get those crispy bits. You wanna handle this delicately, gently, and quickly. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a good one. I wanna cover the entire surface area of the stew. I'll finish with a pinch of flaky salt, like sparkly body glitter, and it'll bake at 375 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. It'll look stunning. Ooh. Isn't that striking? Just needs a sprinkle of parsley for a pop of freshness and greenery. Make sure it's okay. It's like phyllo music to my ears. Oh yeah, look at that. It's so steamy. It's like a hug for my insides. That flaky, crunchy phyllo dough on top is awesome.
I'm so excited to show the soul food side of vegan. I want to make fried chicken, but with no chicken. I want to make lemon pepper chicken with tofu and ranch sauce to dip it in. So I have some firm tofu here. Now that's very important because I really need it to hold up like chicken does. So to drain this and to make sure that all the excess liquid comes out of it, I have some paper towel at the bottom. I have the tofu on top of the paper towel. And what I did was put another tray on top and weigh it down with some cans so it can really soak up all of that liquid into the paper towels. So I have cut my tofu up into strips. And I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna get this tofu to taste just like chicken. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but in the supermarket, they carry vegan chicken flavored broth. So when I do fry it up, it's gonna have this beautiful crunchy coating on the outside and it's gonna taste just like chicken on the inside. I'm gonna add my tofu to this and let it marinate and soak up that chicken flavor. Now I'm gonna make my ranch sauce for my chicken strips. It's gonna taste just like ranch, I promise you. A little bit of vegan mayo, And I'm gonna use a little bit of almond milk unsweetened original, because almond milk does come in like vanilla flavors and other flavors. Get the unsweetened original. Some garlic powder, some dried parsley. I like to add dill, and a little goes a long way because it is dried. And I'm gonna use some onion powder. And then finish it off with some black pepper, heavy pinch of salt, and a little bit of vinegar. Okay. Give it a mix. All right, let me try this. That tastes just like buttermilk ranch. All right, so now I'm gonna make my vegan buttermilk for my chicken strips. I'm gonna pour in 1.5 cups of almond milk, unsweetened. I'm gonna add in about 1.5 tablespoons of vinegar. So I'm gonna let my buttermilk hang out, get nice and thick, and I need to refrigerate my ranch while that happens. All right, so I got my whole dredging table here set up. I have my firm tofu that's been sitting in that chicken broth. I have my buttermilk here. I got 2 cups of flour, 1/4 cup of cornstarch to really help flour adhere to that tofu, and lemon pepper seasoning, just a pinch of salt, and a little bit more pepper. From the chicken broth to the buttermilk to the seasoned flour. So I'm gonna fry it up in vegetable oil, and it's gonna have that same crispy texture on the outside that you get with your standard chicken strip, and the inside is gonna have that flavor of like a chicken nugget. Of course, it's not gonna pull apart like your chicken breast, but it's gonna have a soft crunch to it on the inside like dark meat chicken. All right, so my tofu is breaded. Now I have my vegetable oil here that I have heated up to about 350 degrees. I'm just gonna fry it until it's golden brown, but I'm not frying it, of course, to cook it all the way through, because you don't need to cook tofu through. Normally when I'm frying chicken, I'll kind of use my spider and move it all around. I don't wanna do that with tofu because it can be easily broken. So I just wanted to float, let it fry, and then take it out to reduce the risk of breaking it in half. So my chicken strips are nice and golden brown and crispy. I'm gonna dip these in the ranch, and they're gonna taste just like that 10-piece lemon pepper combo that all the folks in Atlanta love.
Be my Sue and slice up this onion, slice up the fennel into wedges, and the carrot into pieces like that big.
Ooh, tell the Iron Chef what to do.
My favorite part of this roasted root jumble is these lemons. Roasting the lemon caramelizes it and brings a little freshness
Just
to
like that, raw.
Just raw and thinly
Great.
sliced, and then we're gonna do a special spice blend.
Okay.
So, like I said, it's called dukka. And traditionally in the Middle East, what would happen is you would take warm piece of bread, a little bowl of delicious olive oil. You would run your bread through the oil and then in this spice blend, and that would be like a little snack.
Like black pepper and olive oil.
Yes, exactly,
Love
yeah.
this.
So what we have here is it's usually nuts and spices. Or if you came up from the Palestinian side, it would be legumes and spices. So I've done hazelnuts. Traditionally, it's pine nuts.
I love that.
So I've toasted them a little bit, and then I also toasted with coriander and cumin seed. Both of these are actually really good for your digestion. I'm not trying to get it too fine, but those hazelnuts are not going.
Want me to chop those?
Yeah, maybe we can chop them.
Sure.
You don't want it too fine. You want to have a little texture on there.
Yeah.
And then you're going to sprinkle that over here. Now, if you didn't want to do this, you could just do cumin and coriander. And then my favorite spice blend that comes out of the Indian kitchen is called garam masala, which means warm spice mix. So I'm going to sprinkle this in here and hit it with some olive oil. That's perfect, honey. Yeah, right in there. Thank goodness for you, GZ. So we're gonna hit it with some olive oil and some salt and
God,
pepper.
it smells like amazing.
I'm gonna put this in here, and I know it looks crazy pants.
Yeah.
Well, you called it a jumble?
I call it a jumble.
So it's jumbled up?
It's a very technical term. This is a 375-degree oven. You're gonna cook it for 20 minutes, and then at that point, you're gonna pull it out, and you're gonna sprinkle some feta cheese on top to make it just a little extra special. And then this is a great side for chicken. It's also really great if you,
close it for you.
Can you close it? Thank you, Sonny. You could put it over polenta and make it a So then, and I love a fresh herb.
So
on
there's
top.
no liquid or anything in there?
No, it's
totally
it
dry.
should be just dry. And, you know, I would actually, just because it did dry out a little bit more, do a little sprinkle of olive oil. You're going to get some juice out of that lemon, too. And then some fresh herbs right on top. I've got cilantro, parsley, which is related to cumin, so they really do work very well together.
This is stunningly good.
Oh,
I mean, I'm going back. I want to finish this.
I am making stuffed cabbage with curry coconut milk and chickpeas. I know.
Wow.
And to save on time, you're all gonna help me cook. Do you love that?
Oh,
Yeah,
Bob,
time
please.
is money, so we're gonna save that too.
Amen.
Yes. So you are actually gonna, so if you have the filling cooled in front of you, and I'm just gonna go through how I made it. You're gonna line up 2 cabbage leaves, put about a half a cup of filling in the center, and fold and roll nice and tight like a French sort of adjacent burrito type thing. For the sauce, I am just gonna literally mix about half a large can of tomatoes with a can of unsweetened coconut milk and some curry powder, and I'm just gonna let that simmer on the stove. And
Now, what
that's
should
just
I
gonna
do?
be
Should
our
I
little
help out?
sauce.
'Cause I do see a tool, so I'd be
you-
using it.
So you are gonna, first of all, I'm gonna need you to chop cilantro.
Okay.
But second of all, more importantly, I'm gonna take a few of these outer leaves, the kind of sturdier ones. Those are the ones we cut off first, right, to make our actual cabbage rolls. And then the rest of the head, Sonny, if you would shred it, goes in the filling.
Okay.
So I'll
Thin
leave that-
shred?
Please, a thin shred.
Like slaw.
Now, these take a while to really get tender, so I drop them in boiling salted water for about 5-6 minutes. You really, you know, there's nothing worse than making stuffed cabbage and it's not cooked enough. You really
Time.
want to get this cooked. Was this a competition?
Time.
Well, all right, but we're gonna
I'm
have to go over who made the best one, Jeff. So, are you sure you wanna go over what you did?
I'm not gonna point out mine.
I'm checking.
Awfully pretty.
I know, it's really, mine's are the worst.
So for the filling itself, I have here just sliced onions and garlic. And to it, I'm going to add ground cumin, some crushed coriander seeds. I love a little texture in
Yeah,
the
man.
seeds. So some red pepper flakes. You could take them out if you don't want it to be spicy. And curry powder. I use sweet curry powder. You could use spicy curry too, if you like that better. So here we have the coconut milk, tomatoes, and a little curry. Just simmering away, and that's gonna be our little sauce. To that, I'm gonna add some chickpeas, just cooked, drained. I like to use the low sodium ones. I don't wanna add a lot of extra salt. And here I have that, throw it right in there.
Yeah?
Yeah. The rest of that cabbage just goes right in there.
Those chickpeas are a great money saver as well. Inexpensive, great source of protein.
Now, the rest of that can of tomatoes I add over the cabbage along with some red wine vinegar. You just need a little bit of kind of punchy acid in there. Your cabbages look great. Would you line them up for me?
Yes.
Jeffrey, I know you're wearing suede and it might splatter. You want a pair of, do you want a
them here?
spoon? Yeah,
No.
just in 2 rows. And you see this filling? You literally just cook this on the stove until the cabbage and all the ingredients melt together. If it's a little dry ever, you can add some water, obviously. And then we just stuff them. Smells so good. A little salt in there. Cabbage needs salt. And then just for the finishing touch for the filling, I just grate some ginger, skin and all, right in there, and a cup of cooked rice.
Okay.
You don't have to add that. You could add extra chickpeas and skip the rice. I like a little rice in there. I think bring it together. A little starch, a little carb.
I mean, this is very low cost, but a lot of food. You know what I mean? Like a lot of filling food, too.
So we're gonna bake these, 350, 20 minutes. You can, just until they're fork tender. You want that cabbage to be cooked, bottom line.
Yeah.
You know? It's really about that.
Sorry.
Wow, look
Oh my God, everybody's
wow,
at the
everybody's
oven.
We'll take care of you,
out
Alex.
loud.
That's what we do.
I go to the oven, everybody takes a nap.
Careful.
Oh, be careful.
Would you
Watch
close
out.
the oven for me? Thank you, love.
I'll get it, Jeff.
Hey, you just be careful with that outfit.
It is nice to cover this when you cook it, right? And then, come on, aromatherapy. Are you ready?
for this?
I'm ready.
We're ready.
Come on,
Ooh,
girl.
They're so plumpy.
Coconut milk is like magic.
It really is.
It's one of those things that
Yeah.
you just throw it in anything. You put coconut milk in it, it's like great.
And it's not a heavy coconut
No,
flavor.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Did you sprinkle cilantro on this?
You know I will.
That cilantro that's Sunny, so expertly chopped, just goes on top. Yeah, I know.
Like it.
This is, you could get very Frenchy with this.
All over your hands.
I got cilantro.
It's all
This
over
is
me.
like, this is a vegetarian delight right here.
Look at that
Sure
cilantro. I
is.
got
Wow.
a heavy helping of my sprinkle.
Oh, the smell. It's beautiful, Alex, first of all. You eat
I'm
with your
so
eyes.
glad.
That's beautiful.
Zoom
Well,
in
we're
on
not
that
skimping
within
on
camera.
presentation or taste, are we?
Not at all.
Just the wallet.
Very homey, too.
Oh, it's heavy.
I could see you making this German style.
Girl.
No?
You got Polish style, you do German style, you do Italian
Thank
style,
you.
you can do Asian style, you can do French style.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay,
You really
Forrest.
could take this in any number of directions.
Everything is right about this dish.
Uh-oh.
Forget it doesn't cost money. It's just, it's what you want to eat. It's savory, it's
be
interesting. The acid from the tomato, it's fresh, it pops. And the cabbage is cooked just enough. It has a little bite on it, but you need that little bite because you want to remember you're eating vegetables here. The stuffing is sublime.
Now, working on Guys Grocery Games, I see some amazing foods. I mean, amazing foods and chefs coming in and using them in amazing ways. And one of my favorites, hang on, one of my favorites is jackfruit. Oh, yeah, this fantastic meat substitute. It's blowing up on menus all over the country. And today, that's what we're gonna make is a barbecue jackfruit empanada. All right, so this crazy jackfruit. Now, I have jackfruit in a can, and this is most of the ways you're gonna find it, okay? And what we're going to make is gonna blow your mind. You can use it in sandwiches, you can use it in tacos. This is your pulled pork substitute. And do you know how many times I've made these for people and given it to them, and they haven't had an idea what's going on, and then when I tell them it's jackfruit, they're like, no way. So I want you to try the same thing at home, okay? Let's get into it real quick. We're gonna make two things. One, we're gonna make this fantastic red bell pepper aioli. Okay. If you don't want to get into this process of making the aioli, you can just take this, roast it up, and then hit it into some mayonnaise. But I got a little bit of time, so I'm going to do it. Got the oil going. We're going to fry the empanadas. You know, everybody, every culture has their empanada-ish type dish, okay? Be it a wonton, or be it a gyoza, or be it a samosa. Everybody's got one. This empanada with this jackfruit, because of the way that it's going to be hidden inside of the dough, and I'm not making the dough, we're just going to buy the dough. Let's make it easy. They're not going to be able to tell. Oh, you're going to love this. Okay? Get into an onion. Here's what it is. Jackfruit, when it's in the can, you kind of typically know it's going to get a little soft. So to keep some texture to it, or to add some texture to it, I should say, we're going to throw it into the oven once we get it sauteed. All right. All right, some heat on that pan. So half of the onion is going for the empanada, half is going for the red bell pepper aioli, and I just want to show you how fast and easy this all comes together. Okay? A little bit in there. Pull that cutting board right over the edge of the counter, like that, and then you can just sweep it in. But remember, if you ever do it with your knife, use that backside of your knife. This noise is just dulling the knife. This noise is getting it in the pan, okay? Touch of some salt, help with the caramelization. The onion, touch of some salt as well, and a little bit of garlic. Actually, a little garlic for both. Let me show you one of my favorite ways to control the garlic. Take that clove just like that, give it a little press, okay? Now we flattened it out. Now it doesn't want to roll around or play weeble wobble with you. Okay, now you go ahead and give it a quick little cut, and it's good to go. In this situation, if you want to take it a step further, you can give it a little press, and then go ahead and give it a couple side slices. Now go ahead and cut through it, and it's even more broken down for you, okay? I'm not a big fan of the garlic press. I think it turns the garlic inside out. This right here, I think you'll get a little bit more garlic flavor and a little less harsh garlic flavor. Not showing off, just try not to let it burn. Okay, just a touch of garlic into this, and a little bit of garlic into the red bell pepper for the aioli. Okay, now let's look at this jackfruit. Now this jackfruit is a monster. A good place to find this, Asian markets. A lot of specialty markets will have it. This right here being canned, I'm not too scared of it because I know exactly what it's gonna taste like, and most of the time people have had it, they've had it from the can. So it's been drained out, most of the moisture was at least. Get two of these in here. And I know you're doing the exact same thing I did the first time my sister told me about this. I said, yeah, exactly. Gonna taste just like pulled pork. Can't wait. You'd be amazed at how many times even I've been biting into it and I'm like, this jackfruit? Okay, this can just cool down a little bit. Turn off the heat. This needs to just cook down just a little bit. I'm gonna add a touch of water. Okay? Then I'm gonna give it a little mash, toss it with a little barbecue sauce, and throw it in the oven. Just needs a few minutes. So, take a look at this. So now we've got this jackfruit, and it's really had a chance with a little bit of that water. It starts to break down. I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a mash. What I want you to do is just take this potato masher or the back of a wooden spoon or the back of a spatula and just give it a little press, because I want you to leave some texture and some size. I hate the word, but I want you to leave some chunks. Not my favorite culinary word, but you can see how it's almost starting to look like pulled pork. Now, right now, it's got a little bit of brininess to it from being in the can. So we're gonna sit here and saute this, but what we are gonna do is let it go into the oven and dry out. All right, there we go. Now, I recommend using your favorite barbecue sauce. Oh, it's mine. How coincidental, that's very fun. A little bit of barbecue sauce, not too much. Sheet tray. Pulled pork, not over-sauced. Pulled pork looking, I should say. 350-degree oven. There's a little bit of oil on that jackfruit, so I'm not too worried about it sticking. But even if it does stick, scraping it off with a spatula is gonna even build more of that texture. I'm gonna thin this out a little bit so we can dry. We'll pop it in the oven. This is gonna need 20 minutes. All right, the jackfruit should be dried out, ready to go. In the oven, 20, 25 minutes, starts to dry a little bit. And ladies and gentlemen, you start stepping right into pulled pork. It's gonna get cooked a little bit more, so it still has a little bit of a brininess to it, but the textural piece, when it dries and the chew that you get, let this cool down before we put it in the empanadas. Okay, we're gonna make a little aioli. Drop this in. A little touch of some mustard, keep everybody together. Cracked black pepper. Get some yolks here. I think when you're making something like a dipping sauce and you can make this aioli from scratch, and this is how fast we're making it, just go ahead and do it. One, it makes everybody feel like you're really doing something special. But two, there's just a different flavor. I don't know, maybe it's because canned or jarred mayonnaise has stabilizers and so forth in it, but this just seems really the way to make it really next level. Okay. Touch of some salt. I've got the acid in there from the mustard, so I'm in pretty good shape with that. Little vinegar to it. Just has to brighten up a little bit. It's a little sweet. So that roasted pepper, the roasted onions, of course, makes it sweet. That's what I wanted. Ought to be dynamite. Complements and pairs up perfectly with the barbecue sauce. All right, so this is out of the way. Let's talk about empanadas. This is an empanada dough. Just like you would buy a wonton skin or an egg roll skin, you keep them moist, don't let them dry out, don't let them get next to heat, and do not put hot stuff inside of them. So hopefully we have calmed down here enough. Yeah, this is cool enough. Okay? So what I have is a wet, damp towel here. Kept these wrapped up, keep them from getting dried out. And if you put something hot on them, it's gonna burn right through them. So the key is to get it in fast, keep them covered. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna add a little more barbecue sauce. I wanted it to dry out. I didn't want the barbecue sauce to get in the way of that process. Lightly done. Okay. A little bit of the filling right into the dough. Got some good texture in there. Now, a little touch of water. That's what we're gonna seal it with. Don't do too many of them at a time. The key here, ladies and gentlemen, when you're at home doing this, is to make sure that we get the air out of it and to make sure that we get a good seal. If you get too much filling in there and you can't close it properly, like see if I start getting the filling between the two edges, that's when it's gonna have a chance to explode on you. And when that explodes in your oil, oh, we got a problem. I'm gonna crimp this a little bit with a fork. And this is just to really make sure that it locks it down. There you go. Barbecue jackfruit empanada. Oil's at 350. Fry these off. There we go. What are you doing, Smoky Dogs? You come check things out? Okay? These bad boys are done. Nice and golden brown. Okay? Now, look at this. The great thing about empanadas, you can stuff them with anything. I did this with jackfruit, one, because I love to see the vegetarian alternatives that are out there. And I don't even like to think about them as actually as alternatives. I just like to look at things that we could do that we haven't been doing that offer us great flavor and kind of surprise my friends and my family. And I learned a lot of this. I'm telling you something. I pay attention. I listen just like you do. So here's a great way to do it. Take this empanada. Let's give it a little cut. Come on. Look at that. Pulled pork? I think so. Don't say anything. Just put it on the platter. Lay these up here. Give a little drizzle of some barbecue sauce. Of course, I might have a favorite. I don't know. There you go. A little bit of the roasted red bell pepper aioli done with the onions and the garlic. Awesome. You gotta make sure that you let that dry out a little bit. It'll bring even more texture. Little tang of the barbecue sauce. Nice chew of the jackfruit inside that canned jackfruit. Nice, light, flaky empanada dough, cooked at the right temperature, not oily. I'm telling you what, that's a go-to recipe. I'm glad you looked this up. I'm glad you're watching it. You take this, make those empanadas, get that jackfruit, make extra, build some burritos, build some taquitos, whatever it may be, but this is a go-to. You guys are gonna love it. I'll see you later. Catch you next week.
I am making my sheet pan ratatouille pizza, which is loaded with fresh sweet veggies and burrata and roasted garlic. It is delightful. To make my dough, I'll just combine all my ingredients into my stand mixer bowl. 2 cups of bread flour, 1 3/4 cup of whole wheat flour, 1 1/2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast will help the dough rise, 1 1/2 teaspoons of kosher salt, and that's it for my dry ingredients. I'll whisk everything together. I've got my water here. This is 1 1/2 cups of warm water. The warm water helps the yeast do its job. And then 3 tablespoons of olive oil will make the dough nice and soft. I'll give this a little mix just to bring the dough together. Okay, I'll let this knead for 7 to 10 minutes until it's smooth and still slightly sticky. This is looking good. I'll grab a clean bowl, drizzle in some olive oil so it doesn't stick, scrape this in, turn it over so that the dough gets totally coated in the oil. I don't want it to dry out. I'll cover it in my towel and then let this rise until it's doubled in size, about 1 to 2 hours. My dough is poofed and fluffy and ready to shape. I've got my sheet pan here that's coated with a generous amount of olive oil. Don't hold back with the olive oil. It makes the crust a little bit crispy and kind of fried on the bottom and really good. And then pat it out. I'm stretching this dough all the way to the edge. This looks good. I'll cover this up now and give it one more little rise while I prep my Ratatouille veggies. I've got a garden of veggies prepped and ready to go on my pizza. I've sliced them and salted them and given them some time to drain and get the moisture out because I don't want any excess moisture weighing down my pie. My dough is puffy and ready to be topped. I'll start by drizzling on an herb-infused garlic oil. It's gonna be like secret flavor. Because people will be like, where's all that flavor coming from? I'm also gonna fish out some of these garlic cloves to smash onto the crust because that just sounds really good. I'll spread on some red sauce. And I just like a little bit of sauce with this. I want these Ratatouille veggies to be the star of the show. I'll spread this all around. Oh, these smells are really good. Look at all these fun colors. I'm just gonna arrange them totally randomly. And they can overlap a little bit. Ratatouille is a French dish, and it includes so many of the veggies that I grow in my garden every summer. And when they're at their peak of freshness, they're so sweet. So I love them on a pizza. And I've got thyme and rosemary. The earthiness of these herbs complement these veggies really nicely. Now I need the cheese, of course. I've got burrata, which is gonna just cover these veggies in creamy goodness. I'll just tear this right over. I'll finish with a little bit more oil. This will help the veggies brown. It'll make them glossy and party ready too. Okay, I'll bake it now at 450 degrees for about 25 minutes until it's golden. Oh, yes. I am so excited about this. So to finish this off, I'll sprinkle it with some Parmesan for that boost of flavor, a little bit of flaky salt to make everything just pop, some fresh arugula for a peppery crunch, and some nice greenery on top. And lastly, fresh basil. How pretty is this?
So Jeff, I'm gonna have you work on my garnish. If you'll thinly slice up those 3 scallions, that would be great.
Great.
And I've got some rice here. This is just cooked white rice. If you have leftover rice, if you've ordered out and you've got those little containers in the fridge, great way to use it. Or if you have frozen rice, you can thaw it out and use it. So you can also use brown rice. That's a great way to use it up. Okay, now I'm gonna add for my sauce some soy sauce.
Ooh.
Lots of flavor in there. I like to use the low sodium soy sauce.
Ooh, that's expensive.
And some sesame oil.
Ooh, that's
really pack a lot of flavor in just a little bit. Fresh ginger. Tons of flavor here. Just because we're going light on our wallets doesn't mean we're going light on our flavor. And garlic. And I find that when I'm making a healthier dish like this, you do need to punch up the flavor. You know, we're not using as much fat. So I'm just gonna whisk that together. And now I'll just mix it all up. So I've got my tofu. So with tofu, I think it's important to drain it. So put it between a couple paper towels, set it in the colander, in the sink, and put something heavy over it. You could just put this bowl over it and let it sit for a while.
Use firm, extra firm, silky,
firm or
no.
extra firm. Silken is gonna break up a little too much in this. And then I'm using frozen veggies. So this is a great way to save money, especially when it's off season, because those are picked and frozen when they're their freshest. And they're less expensive. And you're also not gonna be throwing stuff out because it's not gonna sit in your fridge and go bad.
Somebody should have done that with her
Smiling
dish, I
because she
think.
knows she's winning with that ingredients.
And you can use any
here.
frozen veggies you have. I always have frozen broccoli. I always have frozen spinach. All right, so toss this up. And you can also use any protein you have left over. You got a leftover chicken breast, chop it up and put it in here. Leftover pork chop, that would work.
We
Even
broke, Katie. We don't
hot
have
dogs
that. We
would
broke
work.
Hot dogs.
Yes, remember I made once before a hot dog fried rice here with your leftover hot dogs.
It smells great in there, a lot of great flavor in
I'm
there,
gonna put
too.
just a little bit of salt because the soy sauce is gonna give us a nice saltiness.
This actually
and
looks
some
like fried
pepper.
rice. I'm
It does,
nervous.
doesn't it? Now, when you're making fried rice at home, it's hard to get it crispy unless you have a big wok. But not here, because we're putting it in the oven on a sheet pan.
You put it under the broiler or in a baking?
I just want to argue, like, is that really a meal, though? Like,
Heck yeah, that's a meal. You put that in a bowl.
Yep.
You've got your protein, your
right.
carbs, your veggies. Now spread it
I'm
out.
just jealous.
And I've put a piece of parchment paper on my sheet pan because that's gonna make cleanup easier.
You know what I love is too, if you don't have a wok, you don't have a lot of saute pans, a ton of oil, space, you can brown in the oven like this. You don't think about doing it. You shut that oven door.
Yeah.
You take dinner out and you eat.
You walk away.
Walk
All right,
away.
Nice
we're
pun
gonna
there, walk
cover
away.
it at the beginning with some foil.
Wow.
That's
So that it
expensive
turns
aluminum
expensive foil. This
foil,
alone,
Katie.
that's really
That is
wow.
Only one piece, Katie, okay?
Okay.
You can hear how thick it is, too. It's the premium
375 degrees for about 10 minutes. Then you're gonna take the foil off and give it another 12 to 15 so that it gets nice and browned and crispy. Look at this. This is perfect for a meatless Monday. Okay, let's scoop this up. Look how nice and crispy it is.
And the tofu is still sort of supple, and that's a nice texture.
Yeah, and you know how sometimes when you stir fry tofu, it just falls apart. You do it in the oven, and it keeps its shape. All right, I like to hit it with a little bit of sriracha.
That in your recipe?
Yeah, it's
In it.
Yep.
Oh, man.
All
All
right.
right, don't forget the scallions I chopped.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
Jeff.
Honey, pour on those
and then
quarters.
the white truffles
Yep.
after
Pour
that.
those
Isn't
quarters
this
on.
beautiful? All right, Jeezy, since you are the big spender, I think that
Hey, big spender!
you should try my
I take that as a compliment.
my
actually.
inexpensive fried rice first and
Wow.
see what you think of that.
Really easy to make. What I like
Super
too is
simple.
you could use any leftover grain you have hanging around in the fridge.
Absolutely. Hit it with some scallions.
Oh my God, your Gruyere-kissed lips don't know what hit them.
He's like frozen vegetables, zutalo.
This is the best part of the show for me, is watching GZ eat.
I've silenced him. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad
That's
thing.
always a good thing.
I'm afraid.
Nah, when
I'm a
he's
little
quiet like that,
afraid.
he's ruminating.
Really good.
It's yummy. I mean, it is. I love the spice.
It tastes like fried rice.
It does. It's just hurtful that it's so inexpensive.
Now we're gonna make a Persian baked omelet. We have our red onion going here so far. Now we're gonna add all this, it's lots of green ingredients. So we're gonna chop up our spinach. The one thing about spinach is when you buy fresh spinach and you cook it, it melts away to nothing. It's crazy. I mean, you can buy like, you know, this much spinach and then it turns into this much spinach. It's unbelievable. So I'm gonna chop up some green onions, some scallions. Very healthy cuisine, very flavorful, but very healthy. So I'm gonna crush up a little bit of garlic. All right, let's cook. So we have our red onions, then our scallions, some fresh garlic. Just gonna let the garlic and the onions cook for a second. And while it's happening, I'm gonna chop up some of my herbs, some cilantro, fresh dill, parsley, and some chives. You can see I'm using a big array of herbs here. You can use whatever kind of herbs you want. I mean, I wouldn't suggest rosemary because it's just such a strong herb. But, you know, get a lot of parsley going. Lots of parsley in Persian food. I'm gonna throw our spinach in here, and you're gonna see how this is gonna just kind of melt really quickly. That smells good. Onions and garlic. Not one kind of onions, two, red and green. Then we're gonna throw our fresh herbs in, and we're not gonna cook them very much, just kind of get them slightly warm. So we wanna retain the freshness of the herbs. Just kind of mix them in there with the wilted spinach and the onions and garlic. Okay. We're gonna take that off the heat, toss in a few pine nuts. I mean, if you don't have pine nuts, you could use things like walnuts, even almonds would work really nicely. So we're going to actually blend the eggs with a little bit of milk. And you can do this by hand for sure, but I just want to show you like another technique. It actually is going to whip in a little air into the eggs itself, so it might make the frittata or the baked Persian omelet a little bit lighter. Okay. And just a little bit of milk. And I like to put a little pepper into my eggs. I'm gonna pour the eggs over the herbs. Just give it a kind of a quick stir. Just mix the herbs in there a little bit. Just a little salt, and let's get it right into the oven. 350 degrees. Should take about 20 to 25 minutes, just until the egg's set, and you take it right out of the pan. You can make it ahead of time, you can serve it family style, and you can serve it room temperature, so it's perfect for entertaining. And then we're gonna take our omelet out of the oven, our Persian frittata. So, I wanna make sure that this is gonna come out, non-stick pan. Like magic. Gorgeous. So we're just gonna let this sit for a minute, and you can cut it out almost like a pie. And it's still a little bit warm, you can see it's steaming, but you can also serve this room temperature. And then a little bit of yogurt. Love these eggs, very simple flavor. The omelet is just cooked through, so it's got that really good custardy-like texture to it.
Y'all, I'm talking about lasagna. I'm making butternut squash and kale lasagna spirals.
Wow, that's a lot of
So
your-
like vegetarian, not vegan, but vegetarian.
It is vegetarian, that's right. This would be perfect for a meatless Monday. It also is a great freezer meal because we're making them into spirals. You can individually freeze the spirals and then just have them to pop in to make a quick weeknight dinner.
I love it.
Because this is a little labor intensive, you'll see. Jeff, I'm gonna have you continue to dice up our butternut squash here. You don't have to do anything with this one, it's just here
Very
for good
nice.
looks.
Good.
So I like them a small dice, and we're gonna roast those in the oven. I've got my pan here to start cooking our veg that goes into the filling. So some minced onion, and I like to cut this up pretty fine and just cook them just for a couple minutes till they start to get translucent. That happens pretty quickly because they're so small. Now, with this recipe, you know, we're obviously using a fresh butternut squash that we're chopping up. You could get the pre-packaged, the ones that are already chopped up for you at the grocery store. You can buy frozen butternut squash that you could roast, or you could just do a whole substitution and use canned butternut squash puree in this recipe.
Are we gonna puree this, or it gets roasted?
No,
and then
I'm
you're
just
keeping it
roasting
whole?
it and
Okay.
keeping it whole.
I'm
I
like,
don't
why
think
am I
I've
dicing it?
seen
You know?
butternut squash puree yet in my grocery store. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to. I'm not probably even paying attention.
It's right around where the pumpkin is. You could use canned pumpkin in this too if you just wanted the whole thing to be creamy. I like the texture of having
Yeah.
the pieces of the butternut squash. All right, so I'm gonna add to this some chopped up mushrooms. So these are creminis that I've finely chopped. You could use white buttons, you could use a mixture. The sky's the limit with your mushrooms. And cook those just until all that water comes out of them. And then adding to it some garlic.
That's a lot. I like that.
Yeah, I like a lot of garlic in this. I think that mushrooms just take on that garlic flavor so well. And then some nice fall herbs. I always think of sage in the fall.
Of course.
That's one of my favorite cool weather herbs. And some thyme. Both just taste so good with those mushrooms, especially, and with the butternut squash. It really highlights those fall cozy flavors.
I'm finito here, Miss Lee.
Wow, okay. Toss it with some olive oil, salt and pepper, put it into the oven. Those are gonna cook until they're fork tender. It takes about 25, 30 minutes at that size. 30, 35, you know, just kind of watch it. 425 degrees.
Got it.
All right, and I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper.
I also think when you're involving squash with pasta, it can get a little sweet, even if you don't put sugar. So
Yes,
those,
you're right.
those herbs, that sage, the garlic keeps it savory.
Yeah, totally.
Brings it on over to savory. Add some savory.
I'm gonna add to it some shredded kale. You know how usually in a lasagna, not usually, but sometimes in a lasagna, you'll have spinach, doing like a spinach ricotta filling. So that's where my kale vibes are coming from.
Look at these little morsels over here, huh? You know
Perfect.
that's good.
So see how they cook down even smaller? And they're perfect to go into the filling. Right, those are so sweet and good.
You're gonna know you're eating squash.
Totally. So you just want to let that cook all the way down, then let it cool off, and we're gonna make our filling. So for our filling, I've got some ricotta cheese here. I've got 1 egg to go in. You give that a little mix. And then I'm gonna add to it some Parmesan cheese. You could also use Pecorino Romano, that would be great. I'm gonna add in some shredded cheese. This is like the bag of the Italian mixed cheese.
Wow, Katie.
Mozzarella, provolone vibes.
Asiago, maybe.
All right, Jeff, take those and put them right in here. And I'm gonna add the mushroom kale filling.
Don't strain yourself, Jeff.
What's up, America? All right, enough of
You
that.
see what I deal with here?
I know.
All right,
Look at that.
give it a quick
Boom,
mix.
super clean up.
This looks great. It just is like the perfect fall lasagna. Okay, I made a classic bechamel.
Ooh,
So this, I put some of it already underneath the little lasagna rolls.
Nutmeg and all.
Yeah, little nutmeg.
Yes.
The nutmeg's really important because of the kale, too. I think that really brings out the flavor in the greens. And I've got some cooked lasagna noodles here. It takes about 1/3 of a cup of filling per lasagna noodle. And then we're just gonna spread it out.
Just that thwack. Yeah, it's like a
Put it right
cartoon
down.
sound I'm seeing.
Right?
Yeah,
I
love
mean,
it.
Now, if you're going to the effort of making this, maybe you want to just double the recipe.
Yep.
And freeze.
Yeah.
Like I said, these freeze individually really nicely.
Tell you, if you asked me, I would serve this at Thanksgiving.
It'd be a great, great
one of those-
vegetarian.
It's like a mix of mashup.
Oh, well, there's some families that do lasagna on
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
Thanksgiving.
that's a lot. Yep. Lasagna or ravioli.
I mean, I would take lasagna any day. All right, so little spirals.
Pretty.
Beautiful spiral.
Pop them in the 8x8 here. Now, one of our favorite things to do in the fall, we've done the last couple of years now that we have Iris, is to go to Hank's Pumpkin Town. Do you know Hank's Pumpkin Town? It's in Southampton. The traffic is crazy around this place because it's on a 2-lane highway.
Worth it.
So it's like you got to plan to be sitting there for a while, but look how much she loves it.
Let me see.
Here she is on her little tractor.
Oh.
Having a great time. All right, I'm gonna top this with the bechamel.
That looks luscious.
Double besh.
So this is our sauce, and it smells so good.
You could have just even marinated that and throw the cheese in, but it's over the top, huh?
Yeah.
I'll
so
take
here
it.
we go.
Dare I say, you might even want to like bump the nutmeg up. because of
Yeah.
all the kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
fall
everything
flavors
that's
here.
in this benefits from that little bit of nutmeg. All right, so smear it all over, and then I'm gonna top it with more cheese.
That's right.
Because lasagna needs to have cheese.
Did your mother approve this recipe? 'Cause
This would definitely not be a Kim Becker approved recipe.
Oh, is this, this is no.
Well, it does have kale and butternut squash and mushrooms, but all the cream and the cheese.
Katie, that's the liberal amount of cheese there, honey bunny.
I
like you in the winter months.
I like
Wow,
that
what restraint.
And now for that,
I like a thick layer of cheese on top of my
I'm with you.
lasagna. I don't play when it comes to the cheese. Okay, this is gonna go in 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. This is heavy.
Covered
let me
or
tell you.
uncovered?
Uncovered. If it starts to brown too much, then
Covered,
you can
okay.
cover it up.
A little guy in there, yeah.
Gotcha.
All right.
Oh,
You see that?
a little corner.
Silence. Move the tray. Move the tray.
I don't know what to
Jeff.
do. I'm staring at the cheese.
Move it.
I'm sorry.
That's an oven pull.
how much does that weigh? 14 pounds?
I mean, this is heavy.
Here, look, watch the. Oh my God, there's a fissure in the cooking board.
Yeah. It is heavy. Now, usually you'd let this sit
Right.
for like 10
Forget
minutes
it.
before you cut into
stop
it.
it.
But we are not in the business of having patience,
No,
right?
I will take the
When it
lasagna
comes-
lanch right now.
A lasagna
go.
lanch?
Lasagna lanch.
You might want
Lasagna
to rename
lanch?
lasagna
Yeah.
lanch.
All right, and you want a corner, right?
Of
The
course
corner's
you
like-
want the corner of the lasagna.
Also, maybe because you did the roll-up thing, maybe you don't have to.
Oh,
rest it
that's
as
right, you just-
much because it's not
That's
like
true, that's
layered
true.
like that. I don't know. I'm just trying to
That's
so we can eat
true.
it quicker.
Probably just have to pull out a roll.
justifying.
Yeah, it really is just getting a roll.
Oh my
Oh, I think
God.
I think you found a roll.
Did?
You know, good with this, Jeff? We'll go good.
A beer.
A side of sausage.
Oh yeah, well,
Oh, yeah. This would be great with sausage
Yeah.
in it if
Oh
you
my
wanted to add
God.
meat.
You can even do like a turkey or like turkey crumble. You know,
Yes,
even like
yes.
ground turkey.
Oh my
But
God.
I mean, I
this
have a
looks-
feeling we're gonna
I
be
feel
wanting
really-
for nothing.
Oh wait, should I pass? I should.
No, it's yours.
No,
it's all
God.
yours.
Okay.
Out. Eat
Nobody's
it.
gonna judge you here.
Look at that.
Wow, that's gooey.
And yeah.
Oh, no.
Earthy mushrooms, the kale. The kale doesn't stand a chance in here.
It's really just there for decoration, right?
I think you're cute with your window dressing this time of year. I get it. But honestly, this is about that squash, the cheese, earthiness of the mushrooms. The bechamel is like a comforter in front of the fire. You know what I mean? Look, it's already getting warm, then you add more warmth.
Look at my cheese top.
It's a delicious redundancy.
This is an oh my gourd alert. Oh my Forget about a fiber alert. I love these flavors, Katie.
A very veggie soup. So I've got a pot with some butter, and I actually heated it until it got to the brown stage. And I'm gonna add some onions. And then I have a bowl full of root veggies that I peeled and chopped. Carrots, parsnips, turnips, and rutabagas. And then some ginger and garlic, whole garlic cloves. And then I'm gonna stir these around just to coat them. I'm not gonna have to cook them at this stage. I just wanna kind of get the veggies coated in that delicious brown butter mixture. Sprinkle some salt and pepper. Perfect, and now I'm gonna add the broth. I've got 2 big honkin' cartons of chicken broth. You can also use veggie broth if you wanna keep it truly vegetarian. 2 spices, I've got some allspice and ground coriander, sprig of thyme. Stir all of this together. All right. Now I'm just gonna bring it to a quick boil, and then I'll turn it down to a simmer, put the lid on, and let it cook for 20 minutes until the vegetables are totally soft. Okay, the soup has been simmering. It's just about ready to puree, but first I'm gonna fry some shallots that I'm gonna use to serve over the top of the soup. So I've just got some vegetable oil and very thinly sliced shallots. I peeled the shallots and sliced them. And now I'm just gonna fry them in vegetable oil until they're golden brown, and then I'll take them out of the oil and drain them on a paper towel. Look at these beautiful fried shallots. Absolutely incredible topper for soup. All those vegetables have been cooking away, and I'm glad I did that because I'm gonna pull out the thyme. It has done its job. So I'm gonna turn off the stove, and I'm gonna puree the soup. Now, you don't have to puree it. You can keep it pretty chunky, but in the fall, I just love pureed vegetable soups. In the fall, I just love any soup, to be honest. And look at the color of this soup now. So pretty.
That's so pretty.
And look, I love this. Every now and then you get like a chunk of carrot that got missed. But it's kind of like a little treasure hunt that way. And this soup is pretty rich and filling, so a little goes a long way. Okay, so speaking of garnish, I'm gonna get some of these beautiful shallots. Take a look, Paige. And the great thing about shallots is they're so light and like thin and lightweight that they just kind of hover on top. And then I've got some beautiful parsley. Alrighty, very veggie soup with fried shallots on top.
Vegetable lasagna, and I'm using yellow squash and zucchini. I'm cutting my vegetables on a slight bias here. Add some olive oil and some salt and pepper. Give it a little mix. My grill is nice and hot. Not gonna leave them on the grill too long, just until they get that nice little char lines on there. Remember, the veggies are gonna continue to cook in the oven. You know, I'm a Southern woman and I eat a lot of Southern food. It's nice to change it up sometimes. And actually, growing up, my mom's favorite meal to make was lasagna. And that's how I learned how to make lasagna. And she learned how to make lasagna from her Uncle Tony. And I remember Uncle Tony, he was actually my favorite uncle before he passed away, and he could make a mean lasagna. While these grill, I'm gonna get started on my sauce. Olive oil, fresh garlic, tomato paste. I'm using crushed tomatoes, paste, and tomato sauce. I like a really chunky sauce. And because I'm not using meat and I'm using vegetables, I need something with little substance. Tomato sauce. Crushed tomatoes, and that gives you that really nice fresh tomatoey flavor, and it's gonna give this sauce a really great texture. Looks like my veggies need to be flipped. You see, that's all I wanted to do was get those nice grilled lines. You always think lasagna is very heavy. Vegetable lasagna is very light, very flavorful. And adding these grill marks, you're gonna get some of that grill flavor. Let the other side grill. Continue with my sauce. Red wine, 1/3 cup. It makes it really, really robust. And don't worry about it, the alcohol will cook out and all of the flavors will remain. Tablespoon of Italian seasoning, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground fennel. It just gives it this nice little like licorice flavor that I really like. Oh, those are beautiful. 1 bay leaf, salt, and pepper. And because tomato sauce is very acidic, I like to add sugar. I say about 2 teaspoons. Some fresh parsley, give it a chop, add it to the pot. In 20 minutes, this is gonna be very, very delicious. But if you have the time, if you wanna cook it earlier in the day, you can. It's gonna be even more delicious, but it's fine in 20 minutes. All right, put that on. Let me get started on my ricotta. So I like to use about 1 pound of ricotta. I'm transporting myself to Italy. And oh, I can't wait till I add the mozzarella. A nice helping of grated Parmesan, some mozzarella. I like using fresh mozzarella because it has a little less moisture, and once it melts, it's gonna have a really nice stretch. I need to add some salt, about 1/2 cup of milk. Like with anything that I cook, I like building layers of flavor, and lasagna is exactly that, layers of flavor. The thing about ricotta cheese is that it can really stretch and get really liquidy if you don't add an egg. Smell the char on the veggies, I smell that sauce going back there. I'm really excited about this lasagna. My ricotta mixture is done. Let me get my sauce and start building this lasagna. I've got my 9x13 casserole dish, and I'm using oven-ready lasagna. When I first started making lasagnas, you have to boil it and deal with that flimsy little pasta and everything's slipping and everything's going all over the place. You don't have to worry about that because these lasagna sheets are dry. The first thing I like to do is add a little sauce in the casserole dish because it helps prevent the pasta from sticking. Mix it around here. Now I'm gonna add my oven-ready lasagna sheets. Fit it to however you like. It's like kind of like a puzzle. There you go. Another layer of sauce. Adding my veggies. Now this lovely ricotta mixture. Whew. So that looks good. I'm just gonna keep doing the same thing until I get to the very top or until I run out of noodles. I like to make a little design on the top because it's, you know, you see the top layer, so try to make it cute. That same fresh mozzarella I used in the ricotta mixture, it's gonna get nice and golden and melty. Parmesan cheese. Fresh basil. I like the flavor of sweet basil, especially with a good pasta sauce. With lasagna, it's always best to start off with it covered so the noodles and the sauce and everything melts and gets nice and cooked. Then I uncover it and let it bake for an additional 15 minutes so all the cheese will melt on top and it's gonna get nice and golden brown. It's time to uncover my lasagna. Yes, whew. That smells delicious. Oh, baby. I immediately smell the sauce, I'm smelling the basil, I smell the fresh veggies. That needs about 15 more minutes. I just want the top to get nice, brown, and bubbly. My lasagna is done. Oh, look at that. This is gorgeous. It's nice and brown on top. The cheese has nicely melted. Oh, wow. Did y'all bring your appetite?
Of course we did. Yeah.
The oldest boy will get his first corner. Okay, this is a big piece. He's a fireman, you know, he deserves this. He's been saving lives.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
That's nice.
Look at all those layers.
That was really good.
I'm making my pasta salad with tomatoes, cucumbers, and grilled green onion, crushed olive vinaigrette.
Ooh.
Wowie.
Into this very generously salted pot of generously salted water, I have put my, what is this, Jeff? Can you name that pasta?
Fusilli.
Fusilli, and I love this because this grabs. You need grabbing pasta.
I like fusilli for a pasta salad.
So I'm gonna take these grilled. I have some beautiful grilled scallions, nice and charred. We've been doing this all spring. I love this, really, it's really fantastic. Our pasta's in, that's where the magic happens. This water has to be very salted like the sea because we are not using this water. If you were making a sauce in the pan, you would make it salty as broth. So when you added it, it wouldn't get too salty. So in this case, we're gonna fully cook it to a real al dente, but really salty, okay? Then we're gonna make a vinaigrette. That's our flavoring agent, a vinaigrette. What do we have? We have mustard. What else do we have, Jeff? Olive oil. And vinegar, Chardonnay vinegar. I like
Chardonnay.
Chardonnay vinegar. I like 50-50. I don't like 3-to-1. I'm always very vinegary. Like I believe both of you are very vinegary as well. Okay, pasta's cooking. I have all my mise en place here. I'm gonna chop up these beautiful scallions.
So good.
Oh. My gosh, hot, hot.
You can do it. We believe in you.
This is just olive oil, salt, and pepper. Very simple.
Oh my God.
Oh, heavens.
Let's taste this. I think it's gonna be fine. So this is what's gonna flavor the pasta plus everything else we're putting in. The pasta, strangely enough, doesn't need a lot of things for flavoring. A lot of dressings and mayo is too much dressing. It just overwhelms the pasta. I know you do. Okay, so we're gonna put all our stuff here. And then we're gonna wait for our pasta to cook because I want the pasta to really hit the vinaigrette and really soak up that vinaigrette. Because everything else is just gonna go along for the ride, all right?
Nice.
So what do we have here? We have some Kalamata olives, some fresh dill, some fresh Italian parsley, and some provolone, which is hard to leave alone, especially when it's cut up. Some red onions, and some tomatoes that I've lightly salted, and some arugula. That's the ingredient.
Provolone.
Provolone.
Mystery little addition there.
Jeff, you love provolone.
I love it. Shoot me.
Very good, excellent.
Provolone Express, next up, my mouth.
Jeffrey, I love that you're making this room temp. I love that you're dropping hot pasta into a vinaigrette so it absorbs everything. But I just love that cold elbow macaroni salad with mayo
That's in the
out of
deli
the fridge.
case, right? It's in the deli case.
From a deli guy, I am not a fan of deli-style mac salad or any type of pasta salad. I like this. This is how I make my pasta salads.
Revelation.
I'm with you.
Revelation.
Katie, help me.
I'm with you.
We're good.
Here we go. We don't drain it. Just do the whole,
Okay.
they call this the lazy method.
Sammy the spider. Look at him go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
another
if you
thing
don't
that I
have
like
one of those spiders,
My
get
pasta
one.
salads are like 1/3 pasta, 2/3 salads. I don't like a lot of pasta ratio. A lot of people put a lot of pasta, just a little stuff.
Another thing
That's
I
all the
agree with
pasta.
you on, Jeff. What is
I'm
going
with you on that, Geoffrey, because I like a lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
Olives, parsley, dill, provolone. Yeah, that's for you.
Thank you. Just put it in my provolone zone.
I guess since we don't agree with him on everything, we don't get any cheese.
Onions.
You guys,
Tomato.
you didn't play it right.
Okay, and a lot of pepper. You gotta have pepper. Pepper wakes everything up, especially pasta salad. And Alex is determining what this tastes like. Last thing, arugula.
You're right. I really am. I'm doing a little math equation in my head. It looks great. I can smell it from here, too.
So
'cause it's
the
hot.
pasta is gonna suck up all that. The warmth is gonna slightly wilt the arugula, but I'm gonna put some fresh on top so you have fresh and cooked. And that's the key, to me, to a real pasta salad that you will go back to every time. And it actually, all this mixing will put it to a temperature that's really ambient, so you'll be able to eat it. There has to be a balance between the green and the vinaigrette, and the pasta just is there to, like, beef everything up. Are you ready? We're gonna give it a TV shot.
I have to say, this is beautiful and fresh looking.
Why do you want mayo? Your pasta salad will not look like this if you put mayo in it.
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to eat a bowl of macaroni salad with the mayo while looking at this. I would be really happy.
Why can't you just have both, you know?
You can have both. But I recommend this for an outside picnic or an outside al fresco dining.
Well, here's the benefit of the no mayo with a salad like this. If you are traveling and you can't keep it cold, this will not go bad.
That's what ice is for, Katie. But all right.
That's true, though.
So?
A little safer in the hot summer heat. too.
So delicious.
That's gorgeous, Geoffrey. I'm just busting your chops.
The arugula and the olive. It's like it's almost like a niçoise salad, but that arugula really just jazzes it all up.
I can smell the dill from here, which I love with the idea of the salty cheese.
So delicious.
Two of my favorite spring recipes are mac and cheese and pasta primavera, a longtime favorite of mine. So I'm mashing up the two and making mac and cheese primavera. How good does that sound? I'm adding some vegetables to a pot containing butter and oil. I just cut a bunch of asparagus into about 2-inch pieces, and then I'll add some broccoli florets. Primavera, of course, means spring, so I'm using spring vegetables. And I also like to add garlic and green onion. I'll just scrape them in. And for color, I'm adding some red bell pepper. Not exactly a famous spring vegetable, but sometimes I like to throw a little color in there just for fun. I'm gonna stir it around just a bit, and I'll add some salt and pepper. Simple seasoning. Spring vegetables don't need much. I'm gonna stir and cook the veggies in the butter and oil for a few minutes. Okay, these veggies look gorgeous. They're still nice and crisp, but they're starting to turn really bright green. I'm gonna add ½ a cup of white wine. You can skip the wine and add broth if you prefer. And I don't wanna cook the vegetables too much, so this is a pretty quick moving recipe. So next comes 2 cups of whole milk. Spring is not the time to skimp and use fat-free milk in your recipes. And then about ½ a cup of heavy cream, salt and pepper. And this sauce is gonna take a little bit of time to get hot and start to bubble up. So I'm gonna grab another spring veggie out of the freezer. Frozen peas. You can use fresh peas if you have them. I rarely have fresh peas. There's something about my soil that is not conducive with growing peas. I'm just fine with the frozen, and I just pour them right in. I'm cheating a little bit on the sauce, and I'll show you how. It's really easy. First, I'm gonna put some cheeses into a bowl. I've got a generous cup of white cheddar and a generous cup of fontina. Now, by cheating, I mean I'm gonna use cornstarch to help thicken the sauce rather than make a white sauce and take all that time. 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and then I'll just use my fingers. Okay, the cheese is totally coated, and the sauce is now bubbling away, which means it's hot enough to add the cheese. So I'm gonna add just a handful at a time, and I'll stir it lightly and make sure it all gets incorporated. Look at how thick this got already. It looks beautiful. Needs a little more pepper. I like to see those little flecks. And before I stir in the pepper, I'm gonna go ahead and add the macaroni. And for the macaroni, I'm using little shells. Now, drum roll, please. I'll turn the heat off under the sauce. Holy moly, it looks so good. The little shells are just capturing that sauce. So to finish it off, I like to sprinkle on green onions just all over. Okay, there it is, mac and cheese primavera.
Let's start with a baked pasta recipe. It's crusty baked shells and cauliflower. So I've cooked 3/4 pound of shells. Oof. And I'm gonna add them to some sauteed cauliflower that I've already made, right in the bowl. I cooked the cauliflower in a little olive oil for about 5 to 7 minutes. I did it in 2 batches so it browns really well. So now I'm gonna add lots of really great flavors. And the first one's a little unusual for me, fresh sage. I need 3 tablespoons of minced fresh sage. I'm gonna just dump it right in. Next thing is 2 tablespoons of capers. I like capers for this because I like that kind of vinegary thing. It's already pretty interesting, isn't it? 1 tablespoon of chopped garlic. And I'm putting it in raw, but it's gonna cook when I bake the pasta. Next thing is ½ a teaspoon of lemon zest. Okay. And now lots of salt and pepper to make sure you bring out the flavors. And I like a little heat and things like this, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of red pepper flakes in. About 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Totally up to you. I'm just gonna mix that all together. Doesn't that look great? I like that the cauliflower is actually the same size as the pasta. Okay, next is some cheese. I have Italian fontina, 2 cups, that I'm just gonna put right in. So I've got a nice big baking dish. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put half the pasta in the dish. I actually love the shells for this because they kind of catch the cauliflower in the shells. You always wanna choose the pasta that's right for the dish that you're making. And I think the shells work really perfectly for this. The next thing I'm gonna do is put big dollops of ricotta right on top. I don't wanna spread it out because when it bakes, the ricotta is gonna sort of get creamy and you'll find little pockets of creamy ricotta. So just like this, big dollops of ricotta. Just right on top. This is a great dish to make ahead because you can assemble the whole thing, refrigerate it, and then just throw it in the oven before dinner. You serve it with a little green salad to start and dinner's ready. And the last thing is I made a panko topping that's gonna make it really crusty. Let me tell you how I made it. I poured half a cup of panko, Japanese breadcrumbs, into a bowl. Added 6 tablespoons of pecorino that I'd ground in a food processor, along with 2 tablespoons of minced fresh parsley, tablespoon of olive oil, and mixed everything together. Now this is gonna go into the oven, 400 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes until it's hot and bubbly. That looks pretty good. Crusty baked shells and cauliflower, one of my favorite pastas ever. So good.
Now I want to get started on Grandma's mac and cheese. This is an old school Southern way of making macaroni and cheese. There's no fuss. It is fail-proof, and I have to make it for Grandma this Thanksgiving. I have cooked 1 pound of elbow macaroni until it's al dente. That means it still has a little bite to it. You don't want to overcook your noodles because it'll get really soggy in the oven because you have to continue to cook it in the oven. So you want to cook it till it's just al dente. That means it's still a little stiff. 1 stick of unsalted melted butter. I have 6 eggs. The first thing I ever learned how to make by myself was my grandma's macaroni and cheese. I was at my sister's house, and you guys have probably heard the story before. We were all cooking, and like everyone has to make their own dish. So they assigned me macaroni and cheese. Little did they know I'd never cooked before, but at least by myself without adult supervision. And I said, I'll make the macaroni and cheese. And I'm like, oh Lord, how do I make the macaroni and cheese? I called my grandma. I was like, Grandma, I'm making your macaroni and cheese. What do I need to put in it? Well, she's like, well, who's letting you cook in that kitchen? I said, Arlene. And she said, okay, well, if you have to make it, put a little egg and evaporated milk. The canned milk is what she called it, canned milk. And if they have some of that heavy cream around, if you want it a little richer, you use the heavy cream and you season your noodles and stuff with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and you shred up your cheese. So I just remember what she said, and I remembered what I watched basically my entire childhood. And I just prayed to the gods above, please just guide me through this macaroni and cheese because I don't want them to talk about me. So I made the macaroni and cheese and it was a hit. So I've been making it this way ever since. I do have my other versions, but this right here is my go-to. So I have 6 eggs in this bowl that I've combined with 2 cans of evaporated milk, a teaspoon of garlic powder, seasoned with a little salt and pepper. I like a lot of freshly cracked black pepper. Pour my egg and milk mixture into my casserole dish that I've sprayed with nonstick spray and my noodles. Give it a mix. And remember, I have that melted butter in there as well. Okay. 2 cups of heavy cream. Have some cubed sharp cheddar here. Now, back when my grandmother used to make this, and I would be her little helper, she wouldn't let me cut the cheese, but she would let me put the cheese from her cutting board into a bowl, and she'll turn around and she's like, well, did you put the cheese in the bowl? And by the time she turns around, the cheese was gone. I would eat this. That was my duty. Hand shredded extra sharp cheddar cheese, about 1.5 pounds That extra sharp gives it a little extra tang. The trick to making creamy and cheesy Southern baked macaroni and cheese is to make sure that your noodles are swimming in milk and cheese. You don't want to see any exposed noodles. No naked noodles. Before I cover this, I'm going to sprinkle with more cheese on top to get a nice even layer of cheese. This looks incredible. I have my oven preheated to 350. I'm gonna bake this off for about 40 minutes or until it gets nice and bubbly in the inside, and then I'm gonna take the foil off and let it cook for an additional 10 to 15 minutes or until the top is browned. And what I also like to do is spray my aluminum foil with a little nonstick spray so that cheese doesn't stick. That's a trick Grandma taught me. Oh my goodness. My grandmother is gonna be proud of me. Now that's how you bake a macaroni and cheese.
A shortcut puff pastry quiche. So I'm making the egg mixture, which is a great way to start any quiche recipe. I beat some eggs and I'm adding some salt and pepper, and then a good amount of half and half, and then sour cream. Nice pile of sour cream. And then I just need to whisk this mixture until it is completely combined. I think the magical thing about quiche is that you can serve it absolutely any time of day. I really love this puff pastry version because all you have to do is thaw the puff pastry. You don't have to make the pastry yourself. That is the egg mixture. So speaking of puff pastry, I have 2 sheets. And again, this is frozen puff pastry. And I'm just gonna lay it right into half of this baking dish. I'm gonna overlap 2 sheets. All right, I think that looks good. Just kind of bring whatever's hanging over the sides down so that it's right around the top rim of the pan. All right, so the pastry is ready. Now I'm gonna lay on a bed of cheese. This is grated pepper jack cheese. It adds just a tiny bit of spice, and it's really, really creamy. I sauteed some leaves of Swiss chard. I just took them off the stems and sauteed them in a little butter, salted them, peppered them, but you can do kale, you can do spinach, any kind of dark leafy green is perfect for this. So now this egg mixture gets poured all over the top. Emphasis on over the top. Oh gosh, I love quiche. All right, so for color and flavor, I'm gonna add some little grape tomatoes. They're cut in half. I'm gonna arrange them cut side up. I'm sorry, but tricolor cherry tomatoes just make everything look prettier. So I have this beautiful fresh dill, which is a great herb for eggy breakfast dishes. And I'm just doing a little sprinkle. You can put as little or as much as you like. So for baking, there are actually 2 stages. I'm gonna lightly cover the pan for the first stage, and it's gonna cook at 375 degrees for 20 minutes. Then I'll take the foil off and let it bake for another 20 minutes. See what this looks like in here. It sure does smell good. Oh gosh, it's so beautiful. Taking the time to arrange those tomatoes so that the cut side is up is really worth it. Now, unfortunately, it's always best to let quiche sit for 10 or 15 minutes before you slice it. So I'm gonna sit here and stare at its beauty and try to be patient.
I always keep marinara sauce in the pantry, and it's a key ingredient in my roasted eggplant Parmesan. I mean, by the time you've cooked the eggplant, sliced all the ingredients and assembled it, who wants to start making marinara sauce? Not me. So first the eggplant. I've roasted lots of it. Let me tell you how I did it. I sliced 2.5 pounds of eggplant into half moons, laid them in a single layer on 3 sheet pans, brushed both sides with olive oil, sprinkled a teaspoon of oregano over the eggplant on each sheet pan, crushing it slightly, sprinkled a half a tablespoon of salt on each pan, and a half a teaspoon of pepper. Next, I put the 3 sheet pans in the oven at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. Then I turned the slices, rotated the pans, and baked them for 10 minutes more until they were tender. Okay, last pan. Trust me, once you've roasted eggplant, you'll never go back to frying it again. You don't get it all over the kitchen. You don't get it all over yourself. Okay, I've got all the elements. I've got marinara sauce, I've got eggplant, and I have to pull some other things together. Half a cup of julienne basil, a pound of buffalo mozzarella in thick slices, 8 ounces of garlic and herb goat cheese, and 1.5 cups of freshly grated Parmesan. Okay, now I'm just gonna layer up all these ingredients. I'll start with 1/3 of the marinara in the pan, spread it out, then add 1/3 of the roasted eggplant, 1/3 of the julienne basil, 1/3 of the buffalo mozzarella slices, 1/3 of the goat cheese, and 1/3 of the Parmesan. I always grate it myself. Now we'll do the same thing all over again. Marinara, eggplant, basil, mozzarella, goat cheese, Parmesan, and again, ending with grated Parmesan. Now, how good does that look already? So one last thing to do, I'm gonna make a crunchy breadcrumb topping for the roasted eggplant Parmesan. Just gives it nice texture. So I need about 1 1/3 cups of breadcrumbs. And it's really easy. Just a few more things to add to give it great flavor. First, 4 minced garlic cloves, then 1/4 cup of chopped fresh basil. I'll pulse them just to combine. Then I'll add 1/4 cup of olive oil, a teaspoon of salt, and pulse them again, just enough to moisten the crumbs. Okay, that was pretty easy for flavored breadcrumbs, right? Okay, I'm just gonna put these right on top. So this is gonna bake 400 degrees for 50 minutes, and then I'm gonna let it set at room temperature for about 10 minutes so you can cut it easily. And that's gonna be so good. Okay, this is my roasted eggplant Parmesan. How good does that look? I just let it sit for about 10 minutes so you can serve it. I'll just make sure it tastes great. Wow. That's really good.
Now I've been grating up a bunch of cheeses, and I'll make the filling for the pasta shells. It starts with a whole bunch of ricotta cheese. I'm actually making 2 pans of shells, one to pop in the freezer and one to take home for dinner tonight. This is a lot of ricotta cheese. Now for some sharper cheese, I've got some grated Parmesan and grated Romano. I also have 2 eggs, and those go right in. I'm just gonna get some basil and parsley together. This is a really great meatless meal. I love it because you can serve the shells with a salad, and that's a great meal in itself. And then some salt and pepper. This is a lot of cheese mixture, so it really needs some seasoning. And then I'll just use my muscles to get this all combined. Now, part of what makes this so easy is that you can use jarred marinara sauce. And I'll just put a little bit in the bottom of the pan, just to have a little foundation of sauce. And now I boiled a whole bunch of jumbo pasta shells. I'll hold it open with my hand and get some of the delicious cheesy filling. And then it goes cheese side down in the sauce. I'm gonna fill up this pan, then I'll do the other one. I'll top the whole thing with more marinara sauce. Just pour it right out of the jar. And that is why jarred marinara sauce is so wonderful. You just crack open the jar and go for it. Now, cheese again. I have a whole bunch of grated mozzarella, and it melts so beautifully over the top of these shells. Now I have some leftover Romano and Parm, and it goes on. Now I'll just cover these with foil and dream about digging into this tonight. So just 25 minutes in a 350-degree oven, and it'll be nice and hot. Everyone gets a big helping of shells. I just love the way the sauce coats the pasta and a little of the cheesy filling peeps out. Yum.
Tablespoon of olive oil. While that heats up, I'm just gonna chop some garlic. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flavor the cream and then reduce it. And it's gonna be like a white sauce. So, tablespoon of chopped garlic. Gonna cook the garlic in the olive oil for about a minute. Right into the pan. The next thing I need is 2 cups of cream. I'm just gonna put the cream in and let it reduce over medium heat. I'm gonna flavor it with lots of lemon. The zest of 2 lemons. So the lemon and the cream and the lemon juice are all gonna cook together. And they're just gonna become an incredibly flavorful sauce. Okay, that's the zest of 2 lemons. Right into the cream. And then the juice of 2 lemons. 2 teaspoons of salt. Remember, this is the sauce on the pasta, so it has to be really strongly flavored. 1 teaspoon of pepper. Just gonna stir that around. So this is just gonna simmer for about 10 to 12 minutes until it's reduced by half. And by then the pasta should be done. Okay, the sauce looks like it's ready. See, it just starts to coat the spoon, just like a white sauce. It smells good, delicious, lemon and garlic. I'm gonna pour it right over the pasta and the broccoli. Okay, next is Parmesan cheese. Put on as much as you like, about 1/4, half a cup, something like that. Okay. Lots of cherry tomatoes. This is gorgeous. Just gonna toss it all together. So the sauce and the Parmesan get onto everything. That looks great. Okay, I have 2 more things. Just a few pieces of lemon tossed into it. I think it really just looks so much better. And the last thing is fresh arugula. I have some baby arugula that's just gorgeous. Just a big handful of arugula goes into it. Just toss it together, and the heat from the pasta is just gonna wilt the arugula just enough. Nice platter for it. Onto the platter. Lots of cherry tomatoes. And I would say sprinkling the Parmesan cheese. A few pieces of lemon, and lunch is served.